welcome back to my channel, the Art Archaeologist channel, and I'm Corey. So a long time ago I made an ink blot video. It was one of the very first ones I made, and it's got part 1 and 2 to it, and I will link those down below. And this technique is inspired by a YouTube artist named Gerda lipski. And I saw her video and it inspired me to make my own, so I will link her video down below as well. Now today I'm using Sonnet Studio watercolors. This is a 24 color set. These I got on eBay and they work great for this technique. I haven't tried any other brand of watercolor with this technique. Once I find something that works, I tend to stick with it. So what I'm really wanting to do is create some like ancient bug type ink blots or ancient cave painting type stuff. So I'm really going to stick with browns and maybe a little raw sienna and definitely some black. So I'm not going to be going off and using bright colors today. I'm just really going to stick with some very deep earth tones. So that's the watercolor kit. Now this is HP photo paper and it's 5x7. I like to work a little smaller. And Kodak paper, and you have to use glossy photo paper. That is very, very important. Now the Kodak photo paper does not work well for this technique. And I used to get this HP at Walmart and I looked for it a couple months ago and couldn't find it. They may have just redesigned their packaging, and I was sidetracked when I was looking. I wasn't really on the hunt. But you can experiment with different papers and see what you like best. I'm going to be mixing up my colors a little, so I just have a little cheapo palette here. And then I like to always work when I watercolor with 2 vessels of water. You want a dirty water and a clean water, okay? Now, the best brushes for this technique, I do want to experiment a little bit today with this flat angle brush to try to get some details and to paint in the bodies. But the best brushes are these rounds. I don't think this one's going to work very well here, so I'm going to get rid of that one. I thought I had a couple more sitting here. Anyway, these rounds are the best for this technique, and I'll go ahead and grab that one too. So that's what we'll be using as far as paint brushes go. And then you want to have a bone folder or some kind of, any kind of pen would probably do the job, or a scissor handle. I like to use scissor handles if I don't have my bone folder handy. But you want to go ahead and fold your paper in half ahead of time. And I like to get my crease pretty sharp because I want the body to be well defined, and you'll see what I mean when we get into it. So now I've got that folded. Now a lot of water is key. I'm going to go ahead and paint one of these. Oh, see, I did have another brush there. We'll use that one. Water is definitely key. I'm going to get a little puddle of water on my palette, and let's go ahead and use some raw sienna. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of, let's mix in a little bit of green deep with this. Now I just dirtied that water, so that'll be my dirty water. I'm going to just add a tiny bit of green to that, get a really dark, dark green, and I want to add some more sienna. Lighten it up just a tad. So that's a real olive green color. And with this technique, I think I just said it, water. Don't be shy with the water. You need a lot of water for it to translate from one side to the other, because when you begin to paint and you just want to do a blob and then rub, And it doesn't translate perfectly when you're starting. See how different they are? The reason for that is this glossy photo paper really sucks up the paint when you first put it on. And then when you start working it, it gets better and better. So your first couple swipes, you want them real watered down. And just expect that it's not going to look exactly the same. Now you can come into this side here and wet it. You can re-wet it. That's the great thing about watercolors, is they reactivate with water. So let's go ahead and get that. And it will start to even out. It just takes a few passes at first. Okay, see how even that is now? And now we've got this puddle here. You always want a paper towel whenever you're doing any kind of art. Anything that I do, I have a paper towel handy, at least one. So I've got this puddle of color out here. So I'm going to fold that down, and I'm just going to take my bone folder. You can take a paintbrush handle, and you just kind of want to pull that paint around and flatten out that puddle in there, okay? And it will move and morph, and then if you like the way that looks, you can take your heat gun and heat set this. Whenever you find a spot that you really love, you're going to want to heat set it. And you know what? I forgot to get my gun ready, so I will be right back. Okay, so you're working on this glossy photo paper, and this is an actual heat embossing heat tool, and you're fine to use it. You just want to hold it really far back and be a little bit more patient with it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that little dot. In fact, let's one more time while it's still a little wet. Let's try to get a design out of it. And the more you work your puddles and spread them out, the quicker they will dry. That didn't really do anything. I'm going to pull it across like that. Okay, so now we got a really cool little, let me pull you in, little vein type design out of that. The more you work it, the more you can do it. But if your puddles are too big, it's really going to take a long time. So I will go ahead and dry this and be right back. So it's still a tiny bit wet, but I've got the veining around it dry. So I'm just going to try to spread it out so I can move on. See how that, now you end up getting these little dots, and this is just the funnest technique. I really enjoy doing this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit more of this. Oh, that's mighty orangey. Is that the color, right color? It is. Got my little guide here creating problems for me. So the raw sienna, not understanding why that's, well, 'tis what it is. And then the other color is the green deep right next to it. It's hard to show you what I'm doing and have the palette in here as well. So I'm just mixing these two colors together to get some more of that olive. And you really, I'm finding, need probably like 4 parts raw sienna to 1 part green deep. Add some more raw sienna in there. That's a little darker shade than what I have here, which is fine. Now, what you want to do, the secret that I've found to really being successful with this technique is to work smaller areas at a time. So I'm just going to do this little spot here. I'm left-handed. I should be set up for myself. Okay. And it's really neat too, because you never know what you're going to get, and you have no control over the outcome. So I'm still having the issue of it sucking up the paint, which is to be expected, and you can go ahead and wet both sides. Okay, and then just close that up again. And you can use your finger. Gerda likes to take her finger and scratch it through the paper like that to get some different designs going. See that? Now we've got a new element. So let's switch colors now. I want to try this flat angled brush because I want to see if I can get some more detail in here. So I'm going to go ahead and wet that, and I think I will use burnt sienna this time. My dogs are, of course, making noise as usual. So I'm just gonna, let's go ahead and do a body with this color. I'm just gonna run a line right down the center of the page, and it's pretty thick with water, okay, and color. Straight burnt sienna. Now I want that to look kind of cool and have some neat detail to it. So I'm going to come in with my bone folder and kind of scratch away from the fold out into the watercolor page. Let's see what we got. See, it even spread it all the way out here, and now I've got these really neat droplets of color out here, so I'm going to go ahead and dry that and be right back. Okay, so that's pretty much dry all the way, and I'm going to go ahead and take this angle brush again. And if you do smaller lines at a time and you're really patient, you can really come up with some neat looking creatures. Now I'm going to do a little bit of black. I have really used up so much of my black that it's almost gone. And I'm going to add that to the center. And I want this to be a little bit more paint and a little bit less water than last time so that I can maintain some of that burnt umber color, or burnt sienna, excuse me, burnt sienna. Okay. And now I really don't want to pull it out too far, so I'm just going to try to keep it isolated to the center here. And you end up getting these really fun, neat looking little designs. So I don't want to add any more black to this. I'm really liking where it's going. I want something a little bit more brown, just a kind of a matte brown. So I think what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to use this burnt umber next. And I'm just going to use the burnt umber straight out of the watercolor kit and not mix it with anything. I do have it quite watered down. Let's go ahead and add, I don't want to lose this veining here. Let's go ahead and add a little dot of it right in there. I've had these come out looking like elephants, turtles, butterflies. You just got to get in it and give it a shot. That added a very neat element there, so we'll leave that. And then of course, whenever you're doing art, you want to add, if you're doing one color in one area, it's always good to kind of add that color somewhere else just to balance out your painting and move the eye through your painting. So I'm going to put a drop of it here. I'm even going to come up. We'll see what that gives us. I've been wanting to re-experiment with this for a long time. So let's pull it up and see what happens. I had quite the puddle there, so this might really be out of control. No, it didn't get out of control. So I'm going to add, it came out uneven. And the way to fix that is to just add the tiniest bit of water to it and redo it, okay? I want to see if I can pull it up a little. And of course you want to close it pretty quick because that paper, the minute you get that water down, that paper is sucking up that paint. See how controlled you can get? Now that part came out great and this part did not translate at all. So I'm going to add even a little bit more water. And I'm just going to focus on those 2 points there because I love this veining. You get this really neat, there's a word for it, I can't remember what it is. You get that really neat veining and it really makes them look like ancient bugs to me. Okay, so I had too much water and it just completely flattened it out, and that's fine. Let's go back to the angle brush. I'm going to rinse it out, and I'd like a little bit more black right down the middle. And I want it pretty dark. So I'm going to go lots of pigment, little water. Might be too little of water. And when you play with it, you start getting a feel for it. And you just never know what you're going to get. I really enjoy that part of it. That's why I love abstract art over any other kind. So that really enhanced the center with the black, and I'm going to let that dry while I work another area. I think what I'd like to do is get some more water and some more black, and I really want to have quite a bit of pigment. And I'm going to try just doing, I want to try to do a few lines and see if that will translate. I'll take the bone folder and go the same direction as the lines. And it did. Look at how cool. Now they're not perfectly equal, and of course I really like my stuff to be symmetrical, so I added some more water, but I just don't want that much, so I'm just gonna hit them again. Close it up quick. So you get the idea, when you add more pigment and less water, you can get more detail. And then the more water you add, the more you're going to lose your pigment. I'm not thrilled with the little dots that are happening, so I'm just going to come in and add to this side this time and see what I can come up with. And of course, when you're working little, you kind of want to hurry. Go in the same direction because I want to keep them separate. They may not stay. Okay, that evened them out pretty well, so I'm going to leave that. It ended up a little blobby. It is tough to get detail, but if you work on this and practice it for a while, you can get better and better. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the angle brush. Sorry for the camera shake. Let's go back to our green. So I'm going back to my thick, juicy, round brush. This is a number 12. And I'm going to go back into this green I mixed up here. And I'm going to add a completely new section right there. And I may not get a perfect match because I'm on a whole new part of the paper, see? And when you do that, it tends to not work the first time, just like before. Trying to get my videos shorter, but sometimes when you're doing a tutorial like this, I like to be thorough and make sure that you get all of my mess ups and all the things that I run into. I like to cover all that with you. So this video is probably going to be a little longer, and I'm going to, after I'm done with this one, put on some music and do a couple more, and I'll just edit out most of it and keep the highlights so that you can see a couple more. Now that added a whole new element to this, and it's really cool when you get, I just love to get these little lines in here like this. It just adds such character to the piece. Now if you notice, it's probably really blatant, yep, it's blatantly obvious on the camera. I've got this round spot here that did not translate here. So sometimes you can leave it if you don't mind it, but let's just fill that in. I want to keep this line, but you can't get too attached because you're going to lose stuff that you love. The best way to protect what you love is to dry it. But if you get it wet again, you're going to lose it. So you can only do so much. Now that looks pretty darn cool, I think. I'm not thrilled with these lines up here, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this green, and since I've got that black up there, I kind of want to end up mixing these together. So I'm going to put quite a bit of watered down green here. Here's what you can do if you don't like something. And let's kind of take it out to a point. See, I just went over my beautiful erg. Oh well. It's the way it goes. So that's going to really transform that black, but it'll add depth because that black color is in there. That's another thing. See how it's stuck? If you hold this down too long, you can actually tear the paper. I'm glad that happened. So I'm going to get a little bit more water and come in again on that spot. And you do, I'm glad that happened because you have to work kind of fast with this technique. Okay, now that's a kind of a neat dark element. This didn't come out exactly the same. And I like them to be, I really do like them to be symmetrical. I want the sides to match. I don't always get my way, but I work hard at getting my way, let me tell you. Okay, so that worked out. So I'm going to let this go ahead and be just the way it is because I finally did get it symmetrical and I got a lot of really cool veining in there. I'm going to dry this and play some music and come back and do a couple more with you. So I made 5 and it went pretty fast. All in all, I think I created all these in a matter of about 40-45 minutes. And you saw me throughout pushing. You can get a lot of veining just by using the pad of your finger and pushing down. And these came out pretty darn cool. I think they look like either an ancient moth or some kind of alien bug species. Here I've got this white dot, and that might have just happened just now, so I don't like that, and there's nothing over here to match it. So real quick, I'll go ahead. You can come into these days later and mess with them. I recommend though just doing it and doing it quickly, doing your art relatively fast, because these you do run the risk of overworking these, and you'll know what I mean. They start to get a little muddy, they start to get a little blurry, and that white spot is still there. So I'm gonna take a little pigment and pop it in there. Just use the pad of my finger and see. Okay, now that evened it up. So you can come up with these really quick. So here's this one. There's the first one we did. It kind of looks like this heart shape. I'm not really thrilled about that. So, you know, you take your eyes off something and you come back a little later and you notice, oh, that really doesn't look good. So I have this green paint here that I let dry out. I'm just going to reactivate it with a little bit of water. And it's quite light because it's really diluted. But I'm just going to come in and reactivate some of this just to show you. We'll get rid of that heart shape. Kind of mess with it a little. I'm even going to wet this side in the same areas as the other, just to reactivate those heavy lines of paint in there. So you can easily change these and transform them. Okay, that looks quite a bit different. It's still got some weirdness going on, but you get the idea. Kind of losing some of the beauty of this. At the same time, I'm losing a lot of my veining. So you can't get too attached. Okay, that looks much better to me. This is really, really dark up here, so it's kind of an unbalanced piece because of that darkness up there. So I'm just gonna come in and wet down that area. Little bit more. Okay. And I want to pull down. I really don't want that part coming off of the page, so I'm going to pull that paint and that water down. See what we get. Okay. So you can totally transform a piece very quickly and very easily just by doing that, okay? So that one will need to sit and dry, and you can bend these backwards like that to get them flatter. And you know, I'm going to make a paper pack out of these, so these will be for sale in my Etsy shop. And I think what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to make them PNG. I think I'll make JPEG and PNG files so that you can use these to create some of your art too, and just use it as an overlay in Photoshop or iPic or whatever. Okay, here's this one. Now this one was really, I loved doing this. Remember, I painted those little lines and then I went over and smushed it together. Now this line is not perfectly equal on this side, and this one too, here. But I'm afraid to mess up the rest, so I'm not going to mess with it. What you could do is you could just target. This one's really blatant and it didn't translate. So you can target that little tiny area because everything else is dry. And it's still not translating perfectly across. I'll be right back. maybe I don't have to go. I think he's gonna bark again. So it didn't work out to my advantage like I wanted it to, but you can kind of mess with it. I didn't get enough water, that's the problem. But see how now it's growing, and I didn't want that. Here's another thing, you get too much of a blob of water, go ahead and just come in with a paper towel and let that paper towel drink up that excess water so that you don't end up with a big mess. Now I'm gonna lose my sharp lines, but it came out okay. So let me back you up a little. Well, here, let's do this real quick. Look at all that veining you get. You get amazing, incredible detail doing these. It's so therapeutic to me. This is I would rather grab my watercolors and some glossy photo paper than pay a therapist. No offense, therapists, but I get further with feeling good and having happiness and joy in my life doing things like this. I find it very therapeutic. So there's that one, and it ended up really neat. It's like got this kind of like a spine or something going on in there. And when you decide to do some of these, please message me in the video down below and throw in a picture. And I've got my Facebook page set up. It's Facebook Art Archaeologist is my page. I don't have any art in there yet, but as soon as I figure out how to, I will link that down below, and you can share your pictures there as well. I'll set it up to where you can share them. So here's this other one. Now, I only used 2 to 3 colors on these. I used raw sienna on this one, and I used this sepia is the dark flat brown color. I only used the 2 colors on this one. Let's back up for a second. This green one is the one we pre-mixed, remember, with the deep green and the raw sienna. And then I just threw in some black and some burnt sienna. This one is raw sienna, burnt sienna, and black only. You can get incredible depth and detail just out of 3 colors. Here's another one. This one is a lot of black. We did a lot of black in this one, and then burnt sienna and raw sienna. So these 2 are the same colors, and look at what a different effect you get by using more of one color versus the other. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and if you get a chance, go and check out Gerda's video. I don't know Gerda, I just watch her videos, and she's a very incredible artist in my opinion. And Gerda is the reason that I'm able to do this. I learned this technique specifically from her. So I hope you give this a try. You're really going to have a blast with it. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.